I'm Sam Noir. I am a comics creator, toy maker, and cartoonist. And you are listening to True North Country Comics Podcast, the greatest podcast out there.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Sam Noir about comic book creation and his plans for Toronto Comicon 2026. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Toronto Comicon is a spectacular 3-day sci-fi, horror, anime, and gaming event in Canada that attracts thousands of people to come to the Metrotron Convention Centre in Toronto, Ontario, taking place from March 20th to 22nd. Every year, Toronto Comicon offers exciting family-friendly attractions, events, world-renowned celebrities, and a variety of comic creators, including Sam Noir. Sam Noir is a writer, cartoonist, toy maker, and editor-publisher based in Toronto. He's best known for his work in RAID Anthology, KLAATU, Cauldron Magazine, Ballyskillen, Cauldron Forbidden Appetites from RAID Press, and FANdemonium Webcomic. Sam's also a vintage toy collector and created a Captain Canuck retro action figure. Cauldron Forbidden Appetites is a deluxe high-quality archival hardcover anthology that's described as Art House meets Grindhouse. Published by RAID Press as an homage to the creepy and airy magazines of the past, this anthology collects the edgy contemporary supernatural tales found in Cauldron Magazine into one complete offering for mature readers. So without further ado, here's my chat with Sam Noir about comic book creation and his plans for Toronto Comicon 2026. So Sam Noir, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you, John. A pleasure as always. I am always happy to chat with True North Country Comics.
Well, that's fantastic. No, it's great to catch up. I know it's been a while. I actually want to start off with what you've been up to lately. I was just watching some of your stuff on Instagram. I think you've been out to Vancouver or something like that. Maybe you could catch us up and tell us what's going on in your life.
Basically, we've released the Cauldron hardcover entitled Forbidden Appetites. It's a mature readers horror anthology collecting a lot of the material from Cauldron Magazine, along with new material that was published in the fall by RAID Press. And essentially myself and Casey Parsons have been putting together a cross-Canada tour to promote the book this next year. So that's very exciting. We're doing all the fan expos across Canada, and we're also headed for the East Coast Comic-Con as well, and the Sarnia Pop Expo, and we'll be announcing some comic store signings. So it's great to finally have that book out in the wild in regular and deluxe hardcover. The other thing that is coming out at some point this year, because the marvelous artist Jason Takowitz has finished our new comic, Gods and Ends, and it's all about how the Norse gods are trying to usurp the Book of Revelations and instigate Ragnarok instead. So again, this is a mature reader's thriller of sorts in terms of end of days, but it's also very, very funny. It's taking the end times very seriously, but not without situational humor.
Ah, okay. So very busy, very busy. And I understand you're going to be exhibiting at Toronto Comicon with the RAID crew. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you like most about that show.
I like that it's the hometown show. Not that I don't love all my international friends coming into town and taking them out to dinners and hosting them for Fan Expo Canada. Shout out to Kevin Boyd, who runs the comics sections of Fan Expo shows. Toronto Comicon, he really curates a very sort of local flavor to the Toronto Comicon. There's a lot of creators who, because Fan Expo Canada tends to have a lot of international guests. The spotlight for Toronto, at least, is a lot of the local creators and local talent, Canadian talent, rather than that sort of international focus. So just to be able to be there with a lot of my fellow creators from Toronto, because we have such a tight community here. I've been in this industry for over a decade now, and it's been nothing but incredible support. And I love that you feel that during these shows. This is one of the shows where we all sort of get together. And in terms of RAID as well, not all our members are local and come into the studio all the time. So some of our remote members come and we're all gathered in one place showcasing the RAID press stuff as well, which has expanded in the past year or so. A lot of RAID creators are there with their RAID press books, and it's all one fantastic team in terms of the high-end product that we're promoting, especially creative director Ramon Perez loves designing books. I think that's an aspect that folks don't really know about. And so the whole line of RAID press books just looks fantastic. So well thought out, so well curated as well in terms of the creators involved.
Absolutely. And big shout out to Ramon Perez for keeping everyone together and keeping the spirits up during the show. So that's always a good thing. For sure.
And herding the cats, as he
yes,
likes
well,
to
I wasn't going to say that now. I wasn't doing that comparison, but it's always a fun time for sure. And I also noted that you're going to be on a couple of panels at the show. So without
Yes.
giving too much away, maybe you could talk about what you'll be discussing. There's two panels. What scares you? It's a horror creators roundtable. And then the second one is the writers panel, crafting narrative. Maybe you could talk a little bit about each.
Yeah. Well, I'm very, very excited about the horror panel, especially now that the Cauldron hardcover is out. So we've assembled other creators, including my co-editor and publisher, Casey Parsons, onto that panel. I believe Ricky Lima will be also around the show, not necessarily on the panel, but definitely folks should seek him out. But fellow creator Joe Schuster, award winner Becca Kinsey will be discussing her upcoming book as well. And we have Michael Schwartz, who is not only a fantastic comics writer, but he also writes for animation and movies as well. He's done a couple of R.L. Stine movies. We've also got my studio mate, Marco Piana, who, in addition to doing comics, has his own RPG publishing company where he does have some horror-themed RPGs. So what I like about this is the broader focus on the horror medium as a whole, because this is the one thing I love about horror fans. They're not so much focused on this thing or that thing. They love the genre. There's some superhero fans who are, well, I only like Batman or I only like Spider-Man. But horror fans, you never encounter the ones that are, oh, I only into Nightmare on Elm Street. This is why the horror medium in general across all platforms and media is such a wonderful community that people can love comics, TV shows, RPGs, video games, movies. Yes, celebrate the medium as opposed to, not that, they don't love specific properties, but I think in general, horror fans are very open-minded in terms of what they want. So not only will we be discussing our creations and our processes as horror creators, we always have a conversation with the crowd in terms of what are they passionate about. That's the one thing as we've been going across Canada, I love to ask the audience, and even before they ask us questions, give us a recommendation of something horror themed that they recommend to us.
That's cool. Now, what about the writers panel? This is something a little bit broader. Certainly horror comics come into it, but what is it about crafting narrative that you'll focus on at that event?
We've been thinking about this because in the studio, especially with, again, my studio mate, Marco Piana and Michael Schwartz, who's also participating in the panel, we've talked a little bit about how generalized. Sometimes you'll just have writers on the panel show up, and then it's a free-for-all Q&A, which is fantastic that people are so passionate and the questions just run the range. But we figured over the last couple of years, rather than just having a bunch of writers sitting on the panel, that we can focus on specific topics. So in the past, for specifically Toronto Comicon and Fan Expo Canada, we've assembled writers specifically to talk about, say, writing compelling characters or world building. In this case, narrative structure. And again, we have 3 different people with 3 very different approaches to writing. And even if you're a structuralist, as we like to say, who really likes to adhere to structure, your approach to narrative is not necessarily the same. Or we have a term, seat of the pants. There are quote unquote seat of the pants writers who feel like they just let everything spill onto the page. It's like they open up their brains and let it all bleed and ooze out onto the page. But that's not necessarily true either. When you get down to it and have that conversation, they are actually, whether they know it or not, more intuitively structured once you start having that conversation about beginning, middle, and end in terms of what's normal, what changes normal, and what's the unexpected result. Just to quote my own mentor, Ty Templeton, who taught comic book bootcamp for years and years. So I'm very passionate about talking about story, how it breaks down, how it's structured, and even how it's not structured, what you can do once you understand what you're doing, the type of rule breaking you can engage in. And I'm also very excited that for both these panels, my very good friend, Eric Anthony, who has his own podcast, will be coming in to give us a little more of a structure than in past, because once you get writers excited, it tends to become a bit of a free-for-all conversation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it's hard for us to get to all our points and stay on topic and then have enough time for Q&A. So in this round, we've added in a moderator.
Ah, very good. Beyond that, I understand, and I've seen you in action at these shows. You're always interacting with kids. They are the foundation of readership when it comes to comic books and graphic novels. And you're going to be doing some stuff in the kids' friend zone, I understand, at the show as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been talking a lot about my mature readers' horror and fantasy projects, but I started off in this industry doing all ages material, and it's still very, very close to my heart and still what my audience primarily knows me for. Again, that there's always challenges once you sort of split your fan base like this, but I've always devoted myself to that portion of my fans. And so I've been doing this across Canada as well. Now that Fan Expo has implemented this wonderful thing called the Kid Zone, which also gives tired parents a little bit of a break where they can sit down and let their kids do activities. I am doing comics workshops with the kids. And the things that I've been doing specifically are creating characters, going through, and the kids in the audience and I will create a superhero and a super villain in terms of what their powers are, and then what their costume looks like, what their personality might be like. It's a wonderful, wonderful collaboration. I am just astonished by the imagination of these kids. And then the other thing we do, we build upon, once we've created these characters, we'll tell a really quick story. I'll show them the very basics of comic storytelling in terms of, we'll go through the 3 types of panels where we create the wide panel with them, and I'll draw this as the kids describe to me the where, the information, setting the scene of where this superhero and supervillain show up. And then the next panel is action, where as a medium shot, full body medium shot of both characters, what do these characters do once they meet? And then finally, the last panel is a close-up panel of one of the characters where we get to see the emotion. And these are the basic building blocks of comic storytelling. Again, I give all the credit to Ty Templeton, who I shared a studio with and took classes for all the years in terms of the knowledge he imparted on me. And I'm going out and hopefully passing this on, paying it forward to the next generation of creators. And I tell you, John, they come up with the most imaginative stuff. They inspire me, things that I would never occur to me, but it actually works. No matter how, off the wall and offbeat and nutty the suggestion is, it turns out to be a really, really great sequence of characters and comics that we end up creating. So it's one of my favorite events at the Comic Cons these days.
That's really cool. They really are the next generation for sure. Now,
Absolutely.
when we've been talking about Cauldron, you've got some other projects on the go. Is there anything that's up and coming that you can talk about, or is it still under wraps that you can?
My next project, well, I think I mentioned Gods and Ends already. And again, that will be coming very, very soon. We're just working out the details. We probably will be starting off with a very simple digital campaign just to warm up the audience, because it's a whole new thing that people haven't yet seen. And then eventually we will get it to a colorized version in print. But I think the first thing, we have been giving out these little zines as well. The other thing that's coming up, actually, Jason Tokowitz and I also did a collaboration in one of the upcoming RAID anthologies. So I think there's 2 volumes coming out, and I'm not 100% sure which ones that this will appear in, but it's a wonderful sort of set in World War II in the German Black Forest with a mythical creature that Jason just knocked out of the park. So if and when that comes out in the next year or so, definitely be on the lookout. The RAID Anthology is just packed full of talent. Again, a lot of local talent, a lot of cross Canada talent, and even now international talent. The RAID anthologies have really branched out and become something bigger than they initially were in terms of showcasing the RAID studio itself. Now it's become a wonderful anthology that embraces so many different and diverse creators. I'm very, very proud to be part of this studio, this publishing company, RAID Press, and specifically the RAID anthologies.
Sounds fantastic. Well, with everything that you have on the go, both now and in the future, where should people go online to find out more about what you're up to?
They can go to Sam Noir's Comics and Toys on Facebook. And I am posting actually a lot of regular fun content at Hey Sam Noir on Instagram for people who love toys and comics, movies. I've been showing off a lot of my memorabilia, and if you like food, I've been showing off. Again, you mentioned Vancouver. I was allowed to go out there because of the kindness of Fan Expo. But what I really love outside the convention is exploring wonderful destinations and places to eat. Yeah, definitely check that out. And as the new projects come out, they'll appear on those platforms as well.
Great. Well, Sam, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
No, John, I think what you are doing is phenomenal. The fact that you highlight, especially in these difficult times that we are living in, highlighting Canadian talent and Canadian creators and Canadian content is something we really, really need and appreciate from you. You've really, really carved out a niche for yourself within our larger community, and we can't say enough kind things, especially me, myself. My appearances are being limited to Canada this year, and I've kind of rediscovered the joy of that in terms of not only being a tourist in our own country, but rediscovering a lot of the talent that we have in terms of the books that you create, the other stuff too, even web comics or even film, RPG, the creative community and Artist Alley and the pro section in general has expanded to embrace a lot of different kinds of Canadian creators, as we've had to become a little stronger and prouder in the way we represent. So you are doing fantastic work, John. Please keep it up. The community definitely would be lesser if you weren't out there talking to us and talking about us. Thank you for everything you do, John.
Thanks to Sam for the chat. You can discover more about Sam Noir online at facebook.com/Sam Noir Comics and on Instagram at Hey Sam Noir. And thank you for tuning into the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. Also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.